All right, dramatic countdown over. Dr. Richelle Marynowski, thank you so much for coming on today.
Thank you for having me on here, Lucas. This is brilliant.
It's an absolute pleasure. Again, like I said, you were kind of the hot commodity on social media when I was asking for guests, so it's a pleasure to have you join me today. So, um, where to start with math? I guess for myself, to kind of go into the struggle of beginning with math,
Mm.
because I think when you're someone who like you finish high school, you do your education degree, especially for myself, I was a social studies focus. I was kind of trying to avoid math at all costs. Now, obviously, going back to a middle school, it's pretty easy to kind of like relearn that stuff. Like it comes back to you pretty quickly. Like the first day you go in, you're like, oh, we're dividing fractions today. And you're like, oh my God, I forgot how to do that. But then it usually kind of comes back pretty quick. It's usually not too serious. But I guess to start off, maybe what are some of the fears that teachers kind of have going into a math classroom, and how would you kind of navigate that returning to a math situation?
So, unlike you, I was avoiding teaching social studies.
Okay.
Anything I could do to not teach social studies.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, one of the things that I think about is getting over one's own fear of mathematics or fear of not knowing.
Hmm.
And I think that's one of the biggest things when I teach those who are not mathematics specialists, but are wanting to, or, taking math for non-majors, wanting to learn how to teach mathematics, that they're afraid that they're not going to be able to explain how they know something. They'll know what to do, but not the how or the why behind it. And I think that's the biggest fear. So for those that are going into an upper elementary or middle school classroom where the mathematics does become more complex, and
Hmm.
we've learned, I know I learned do these things, but I didn't know why I was doing
Yeah.
these things. I could do those things and get the answer, but I didn't know why I was doing those things or why those things worked.
Hmm.
For me, I was good at following the instructions and following
Yeah.
the processes, so I felt
It's like a
confident in what I
people
was doing.
pleasing dream. It's like, oh yeah, I can
Yeah,
follow these instructions and get
yeah,
the answer.
yeah,
Perfect.
score.
Yeah.
But really, like, if I don't know the why behind it, how am I going to explain to a student that's like, is asking that question or is struggling,
Hmm.
or an alternate way to think about it or logically think through something when I just know the process. So I think that's the biggest fear for a lot of people that are not comfortable in their understanding of mathematics. They have like a tenuous grasp on it. They've held on to the rules, but not
Yeah.
knowing the why necessarily.
Hmm. Beautiful. And because I would say for me, especially like teaching some of those, I would say kind of introductory concepts like linear equations and that kind of stuff. Like it's pretty straightforward in the initial stages, but and so I'm even wondering now, um, in my position. So for example, to start off, I'm sure you're familiar, like Dr. Nikki Newton with like math
Yeah.
running records and all that kind of
Yeah.
stuff. So for literacy assessment, because I guess like what I'm starting to see become more of a norm in more schools and systems is that you have these kind of supplementary support teachers that where it's kind of their job to fill in the gaps, and that's kind
Yeah.
of like the strategic initiatives of all these schools. And realize like I think I kind of struggled with the math running record, like how assessing students on their like fluency of of multiplication and division questions necessarily translated to their math ability. Like I didn't really know, okay, like once I have this information of like do you skip count on your fingers or do you know what
Right.
like mentally, how does that translate to your linear equation ability? I understand the I guess like the simple connection of the like your processing speed will make those faster. But I guess like I know your focus is assessment, and I'm not trying to lead this conversation here at all. And I'm just kind of wondering, like, what do you kind of make of even what I'm saying of that, like the translation of assessment to intervention? And I guess how do you kind of go about encouraging those to assess and intervene?
Right. And that is one of the challenging things with mathematics in particular is that there's not a breadth of assessments that are out there that can help pinpoint specific things.
Mhm.
With reading, definitely. With literacy,
Yeah,
definitely. There's numerous assessments. And I've
almost too many.
attended, yeah, too many. How do
Yeah.
you choose? I've attended Nikki Newton's sessions in the past, and I
Mhm.
really appreciate how she draws on the relevant research literature to inform her practices, inform
Mhm.
her strategies that she's put together. So I think that's really strong.
Mhm.
One of the things that it isn't necessarily for me the fluency in the calculation, it's the ability to think about numbers flexibly. So it all, to me, if I know a student doesn't have a flexible sense of number, when they get, and in particular factoring is always the place where it falls apart.
Okay.
They can't figure out two numbers that multiply to give a thing and add to give a different thing. They just
Yeah.
can't think about pairs of numbers like that. And that's not about speed. That's about thinking about breaking things apart and putting them back together in different ways. So
Okay.
I'm less about fluency and more about how many different ways can you do this so that
Mhm.
it makes sense. Because particularly I notice in Alberta high school teachers for sure, well, students don't know this, so they can't get into complex algebra. Well, sure they can, because when you remove all the numbers, you're dealing with letters and processes, right? So, but
Yeah.
it's the sense about bigger, smaller, um, and in between, and um, different ways to create a number, whether that be a
Mhm.
big number or a small number. So I think it's more about the
Okay.
flexibility than it is
Mhm.
the fluency.
And I don't mean to get too, I guess, nitty gritty here,
That's
but
okay.
like, let's just say, I do that math running record with a student, and then usually you go through the first five, and it's like, oh, like 4 times 0 is 0, and 8 times 2 is 16, and
Yeah.
it's like pretty good. And then you're like, oh, 5 times 9, and they're like 78, and you're like, they
Yeah.
just like it just goes to these like nowhere near the actual answer. And again, like it's almost alarming how like from one question to the next it like falls
Mm.
apart. And so again, like what is if you had 6 weeks with a student that
Mhm.
said, like they get the first five on their multiplication, absolutely nail it.
Yeah.
The second five, they just don't like what kind of thinking do you put into how that 6 weeks looks? And like, is it every day for an hour? Is it 2 hours a day? Is it a half an hour every second day? Like, what are you kind of thinking with that? And obviously, every student's different, and you're gonna
Yeah.
adjust to their needs, but meeting them where they're at, like, what does that kind of mean to you?
What I would actually do is I'd go back to a whole class kind of structure. We've just been doing, my colleague Sandy Bakis and I have been doing research on number talks and how number talks can help students think about number and come up with different mental strategies. So number talks are about mental strategies for mathematics and being able to see, and this is hard for me because I don't see the
Yeah.
things in my head,
Okay.
see the structure in their head and be able to work through multiplication strategies or addition strategies or that sort of thing. So I would actually come back to a whole group and leverage the strategies that students have explaining to each other. So in a number talk,
Mm,
you give a multiplication like 14 times 72. And then you give them, enough time to think about it. No writing. It all has to be mental. And so then they have
oh,
to think through all of the little bits and hold it all in their head to be able to explain the response back to you. So it's not just about finding the answer, it's about how they got to the answer and
okay.
being able to explain to their classmates how that works. And so I think that's a nicer way than focusing individually because they can learn a whole bunch of different strategies from other students and how they think of it.
Mhm. Because even from what I've gathered in my, I guess, like time trying to work with students in math, like on in one-on-one or one-on-two, is like it almost like the drill and practice doesn't really
Hmm.
work.
No,
And I've been
no.
kind of trying, like, okay, like let's try and do, for example, um, like the just place value, for
Hmm.
example. So we got like our tens, hundreds, and like I'm just given, honestly, I think I tried like 8 different points of
Hmm.
attack with the same line, and it's just not. I don't even like the phrase "not clicking." It's just
Yeah.
not. It's just not um, like seeping through. Like it just
Yeah.
something is just not understood there.
Well, they're not, it's not resonating with them, right? Like it's not
Yes.
making sense. And so I wonder even about with place value in particular, like base 10 blocks, right? Like
Hmm.
going back to or linking to some concreteness.
Hmm.
So being able to think about things like we go 1 to 10 with blocks and shapes, and then all of a sudden it's now 100. And
Yeah.
now they don't have anything to hold on to.
Hmm.
Number line I know works really well, being able to use number line
Yeah.
and space and distance to help think about number. So connecting not only the numerical representation with the physical representation and the visual representation. So that like I've lived on an acreage like for 30 years.
Yeah.
I don't know what an acre looks and feels like,
Yeah.
but I have three of them. So I
Yeah.
just, right?
I
But
think
so if
football
I,
field, that's what they
yeah,
always kind of
I know,
say. So I'm like,
like
yeah,
football
three
field.
football.
I know what a yard looks like because I watch
Yeah.
football, like
Yeah.
CFL, my game.
Yeah.
But like, I don't know if kids always know how it feels alongside what that number represents. Like
Hmm.
2 liters looks like and feels like this. 4 liters looks and feels like this. So
Hmm.
I think if we can connect number to physical and
Oh.
visual representations,
Hmm.
I think that helps.
Like 2 liters and 2 centimeters. Obviously, two very different things, but you're
Yeah.
seeing like, yeah, one thing. Okay, I like that because I even
Yeah.
noticed for like getting back to the blocks because I tried 3 sessions in a row with a few
Yeah.
students, and I was like, am I just bad at this? I was like, like that could be the case. Like I'm new to this. That's fine. Like I had this box of like some manipulatives that were given to
Hmm.
me, and like I'm trying the different ways of like even for multiplication, like okay, like we're gonna make our groups of 8, and then we're gonna be like,
Yeah.
okay, what does these two groups of 8 mean? And like they can see it, but I guess like even after once you kind of having them see it, and they still don't get it, I'm like, oh shit, like what do I what do I do now?
Yeah.
So, but one of the things I found was really effective. Like I would put like 1.725 on the board, and their
Hmm.
blocks were zero point 0.5, 0.25, zero point 0.1, and try to get as close to this number as you
Oh
can,
yeah.
and you can like, and I found that, like they started to struggle rather than just like
Yeah.
fail without realizing. So I felt like that was
Right.
effective in terms of actually getting to think of like, oh, these things actually equal out and add up to something. So I
Yeah.
found that was good. But if anything, where I was kind of going that entire time with that was it seems that finding ways to be in the classroom for
Hmm.
mathematics as like a support or co-teacher rather than pulling for math seems
Hmm.
to be a bit more effective than just like I found like with the literacy program that I had, I could pull this group of 4 consistently.
Yeah.
We would kind of make some gains on like some morphology work, and it was pretty good.
Yeah.
And like you could start to see some growth in the vocabulary, but and like the reading rate. But when I didn't have that same kind of like the metrics for math.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's interesting. Many, I've talked to literacy experts in my faculty, and they'll say, well, math should be like literacy, shouldn't it? I'm like, no, no, no,
Very
no.
different.
Like, it's very different. And the structure of the way numbers work is different than words. Like,
Mhm.
so we really have to not borrow strategies from literacy to say this will work in numeracy.
Mhm.
It doesn't necessarily. So we have to be really purposeful about our numeracy strategies and getting students to think, yeah, to think numerical, which is
I like
kind of
that.
crazy. Yeah, yeah.
Because even so, to kind of go into um, with New Brunswick, and
Hmm.
I know it's pretty similar for like I guess if I was put into a grade 7 or 8 classroom for to teach mathematics in Alberta, I mean just last year that could have easily have happened to me. I would have been
Yeah.
like, okay, we have our let's try and think of like our maybe 20 to 30 like main curricular outcomes. You kind
Hmm.
of work on 1 through 5 in September. You have a couple quizzes. You have like your final unit test, and it was all kind of product based for the most part. And
Yeah.
I guess that's still where I'm a little bit like I feel like I'm just not indie enough to have like these
Mm.
cool like different projects. I just don't have that breadth, I guess, when it
Yeah.
comes to math, especially like I love social and I got a bit creative with assessment and social, but going into these like different worlds where it feels like the stakes are higher. So you don't want to
Mm.
kind of take those risks and be like, let's do this cool zoo
Right.
project, but then like, what's the parent gonna think when they're
Yeah.
designing a zoo? So that's anyway. So I'll get into that. But if I had gone into like teaching math and like it feels more straightforward than English or
Ah.
literacy for me because it seems like okay I have these concepts. I'll try and teach that concept. I'll try and work with my EAs or other teachers to kind of break kids apart and try to work with them and practice that concept and then move on as a whole. Versus in New Brunswick,
Right.
I don't know if you're familiar with like the new holistic curriculum in New Brunswick, but I was even looking
I've,
at it this morning.
yeah, I've seen a touch of it. Yeah.
But so I was just looking at it this morning and just thinking like, okay, it's like you've got strands, you've got skill descriptors and achievement indicators, and it's all kind of that same hierarchy that kind of comes down. And I'm like, realistically, like we're still kind of looking at like you're kind of doing one thing at a time and you're kind of moving through it. But we, as far as I can say, I haven't had to write report cards, so I don't want to, I don't want to put that out there. But when it comes to assessment, it's pretty much been more of like an ongoing data tracking where we've
Correct.
actually used, and this all kind of boils down to your point of like numeracy should not be like literacy, because we have been giving us all the students a number of 1 through 4 on every single achievement indicator. So
Right.
there's like 80 of them in like the full entire curriculum. Like you have like the big ideas and it kind of branches out. And but we're using the same metric for math as for literacy. So I guess my
Right.
question, kind of given all that information, and I know Alberta's got the diploma and the PATs, and we can kind of touch on that in a little bit, but how would you suggest, because in my experience, the East Coast is a lot more like tracking data and day to day and kind of not necessarily product focused versus Alberta being like almost, I would say, majority product focused. So I guess,
Yeah. Hyper product focused.
yeah. So what are
Yeah.
your thoughts there? What are your thoughts on getting into the data tracking and kind of my monologue there? And I apologize.
It's all good. Like I really like that idea of data tracking. And when I talk to, like I'm thinking about assessment as an ongoing process. Like assessment should not just be a one-time thing. You're constantly trying to evaluate where students are at, make a judgment about what's next, and by not assessing continuously or data tracking like that, there's jumps then, right? So there's a jump from here to here where, oh, I don't know what happened in the middle. I have to go back and see. Or there's a whole chunk that was missed. And now what do I do? So I really like the idea of data tracking on a more ongoing basis. And that's something that I try and talk to teachers in Alberta about to say, okay, what are you doing? Like, what's your assessment on a daily basis look like? And most of them do it. I mean, I'm
Yeah.
sure 99.9% of teachers do assessment on a daily basis. They just don't attend to it in a tracking kind of way. And so then the question is, how do I track that? What do I do with that information? Now what? And so trying to give teachers strategies in order to say, it doesn't have to overwhelm you on a daily basis, but note taking or checklists or stuff like that, that you can do really quickly. And then you have all that data for later, like for reporting or conversations with parents or, what are the next steps for this student? So I really like the data tracking idea as opposed to the hyper product focus. Yeah.
And so if you were kind of put in that scenario, like let's just say you're grade 8 math next year in New
Hmm.
Brunswick, that's all you're teaching. Like how do you like
That'd be great.
what what do you choose to focus on? Like when
Mm,
it comes to the data, like what, because even so, I was talking to Selena Fisk, and she's like a data expert out of
okay.
Australia, and
Oh,
she was
yeah.
on recently, and she always talks about like when districts kind of ask for her consultation on like, oh, like what should we be tracking for data? She always just responds and saying, well, what do you want to track?
Yeah.
So I guess what I've kind of noticed and what
Yeah.
I've been a part of is like, oh, we track essentially the performance on each individual achievement indicator and we give a number of 1 through 4. Like, should it be 1 through 10? Should it be
Mm,
1 or 2? Should it be 1 through 3? Should it be not every single indicator, but maybe a more like maybe we should, instead of doing 80, we should do 35 and kind of condense them. So I guess what are your thoughts with like for an Alberta curriculum, for example, if you had to revamp like a grade 7 to
yeah.
9 program, like how would you say like if we had no products, like that
Yeah.
was kind of the goal for this year,
Ooh.
what would you kind of what would you kind of choose to track, or like how would you
Yeah.
advise
I
that?
would. really think about the progression of a learning outcome. Like, what does it
Mhm.
look like for them to kind of understand it, really get it, and advance, like, and be able to apply it in different contexts. So really thinking
Mhm.
about the progression of that learning, and almost like a not yet, really got it, or I'm thinking of a 3, not quite a 4. I wouldn't go to 10 because then
Yeah.
that's too nuanced.
Yeah.
Um, because really, does it matter whether they really got it or really got it? Or if they've got it. So,
Yeah.
what kind of granularity do you really need? Because right now we're dealing on
Yes.
a 100-point scale, and that's way too granular because half of
Yeah.
those points are don't got it.
Yeah.
Um, and half of those points are got it to what degree. So
Okay.
I
Yeah.
think, right? And sometimes
Ah, I never
it's,
thought about it like that. Hmm.
yeah, like we don't care if it's you don't got it. There's a 50 points down there that tell me you really don't got it. And I'm not explaining that
Okay.
to a 13-year-old.
Yeah.
Um, but, but even maybe got it with help, got it on my own, can extend to another thing. Um, so if I need help every single time to progress through a question or to work through something, then I know I have a tenuous grasp on it. If I can do it on my own, then that tells me that I have a better grasp of it and that I can consistently do it.
Hmm.
So it's maybe about the descriptors, like consistently, inconsistently,
Hmm.
um, like something like that, where it's because everybody has a bad day. So whether we can do it
Yeah.
consistently over time or whether it's, I don't know. Ann Davies really talks about packing a parachute. Um,
Okay.
so she uses this analogy of, and it's mostly with grades. Like, don't punish children or students for earlier efforts if
Yeah.
they're not good. So if I have 3 students that are learning how to pack a parachute, and one student really didn't get it to start off with, but by the time they were done, they're good,
Hmm.
consistently packing the parachute. I've got a student in the middle that sometimes does it, sometimes doesn't do it right. It's very sketchy. And then the third one started off really knowing what to do, but ended off not really, kind of messing up quite consistently. They all come out with a B.
Yeah.
Who do you want to pack your parachute? And so I'd like, well, the person that's doing it consistently at the end, I don't care how they started, I want
Yeah.
to know for sure that that parachute's going to be packed really well.
Ah,
So,
okay. I like
right. So
that.
how are we putting information together? And am I forgiving earlier mistakes? Because I should. Um, and, and if I'm noticing a decline, what do I do with that? Where is that consistency not happening?
Yeah.
Um, so I almost, yeah, as I'm talking through this, I'm like, I think I like the consistency
Yeah.
kind of piece kind of better than, um, yeah,
Yeah, no, 'cause I just hate when like the numbers, hate's a strong word, I shouldn't say that.
yeah,
But when the
no, yeah,
numbers start
yeah,
when the numbers start to just be like, okay, like if you have a 100-point scale, like, oh, they're a 70 student or they're an 80 student, and then like
oh,
you get
yeah,
you get 1, 2, 3, 4, and be like, oh, they're a 3 student or a 3+ student or a 2 student. I'm
yeah,
like that's literally just the same thing. Like you're literally
yeah,
just you're saying like you're using the numbers to describe an overall. I don't really have
yeah,
like a follow up tangent on that. But if anything, you're kind of making me feel better about kind of the maybe I guess like the concerns or the questions I was still having about
mm,
trying to teach math effectively because for me this year, again having not taught math, like it's again, I don't want to say anything is easier, but I think if you're like, okay, you're given your schedule for like grade 6 math, this is how you can kind of
hmm,
this is the curriculum map for the year. You can try and pace yourself with this versus like, Mr. Clark, these 5 students are struggling. Can you please help me? It's like, okay,
mm,
well, what do I use to help you? Like, what do you mean they need help? Like,
yeah,
where do they need help? Like, is it like, am I just going to do multiplication? Like, am I going to do place value? Like, I need,
right,
and so once those conversations started to continue and kind of expand, then I got a bit more kind of like of the granular issues with each student, and then
yeah,
that's what I would just work on them with. But I
yeah,
even found for myself, like if I'm kind of in my little micro groups, like what am I tracking? Like for me, it was
mm,
almost always confidence. And I don't know how you can track confidence, obviously, right? But like the willingness to kind of engage in the struggle, but that's not a product. You know what I mean? So my like Alberta product mind and position paper source
Yeah.
analysis diploma exam, I'm like, I feel like I'm not actually serving them. You know what I mean? So that's
Yeah.
where like that kind of you can kind of internalize that of like, okay, it maybe I don't have to mark all these products, but I still want to feel like I'm actually giving them the best educational experience that they can get.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So I guess what are your thoughts there?
Yeah. So I love the confidence piece, and so as part of the number talks research that Dr. Bakis and I did, is we had students. We also wanted to see if number talks help improve their confidence, as well as their competence. So as part of the assessment that we did, is we had students rate their confidence on each question using a stoplight. So red, I'm not confident at all. Yellow, yeah, I'm okay. Green, got it. Not a problem.
Mhm.
And so by taking a look at the confidence ratings, we could tell that even if students were strong mathematically, they weren't necessarily confident about their mathematics. And so
Mm.
confidence is a really key thing when thinking mathematics in particular, and reading too. So
Yeah.
if I'm struggling reading, or if I'm not confident, I don't want to read out loud and have somebody hear me stumble.
Yeah.
I don't want to, do this math in front of people and have
Mhm.
them know that I can't multiply two numbers together.
Yeah.
Particularly in middle school, like middle school, junior high, those kids are all about social. Everything is the social world.
Yeah.
Their brains are
They're
just
so lost
totally
in it.
on
It's kind of hilarious,
friends,
but yeah.
right? And to put them in a situation where they're going to look foolish in front of their friends, they're going to look real, like they're going to make themselves look like idiots before they look dumb.
Yes.
Right? So if that makes sense. So
Ah, okay,
really
I see what
think,
you're saying. Like they'll go out of the
yeah,
way,
like,
out of their way to look them before actually making a mistake. Yeah, I like that.
yeah, yeah. So we really have to think about where they're at in their, and in their, I'm going to say evolution. That's not the right, but in their
Yeah, yeah.
development, as
Like the
human beings.
relationship with
In that,
academics too, right? Yeah.
yeah, yeah. It's not cool to be smart,
No.
so they're gonna, right. So just. So maybe in this instance, the pullout is the best place, because then they don't
Mhm.
have their peers around them
Yeah.
to poke at them. But then again, they're also in the pullout group. So
Yeah.
I know how that socially can be awkward as well. So I wonder if you being in the context with them as an additional support might work better for them.
Mhm.
I don't know. They're just so tricky
I know,
at
and
that
I
stage.
I did find that like throughout this year, like students would be like, "Oh, Mr. Clark, like take me," but I know that's because they wanted to
Oh,
leave
yeah.
class. Like it's not actually
Yeah.
because like they wanted to come and do the work that we were doing, but I'm like,
Yeah.
I don't know. I just always that one I found was surprisingly one of the easier ones. Like they couldn't wait to actually come work with me. Like it wasn't
Okay.
like it was them getting out of like post intensive French class. So they're like, heck yeah, I'll go do some
Oh,
number work with Mr. Clark. So they were all good. So that like to me like the classes I would choose to take them from. Because at first I
oh,
would take
yeah.
them from math or ELA, and I'm like, well,
Right.
that doesn't really make sense. Like, I mean, if they,
Yeah.
I don't want them to lose more time in there. Um, and so even for kind of usually when it comes to like project, and I would
Hmm.
say my example of when I said I would teach grade 7 or 8 math, I would kind of follow my curriculum map. You have your quizzes, your tests, etc.
Yep.
That's almost kind of the antithesis to project-based
Hmm.
learning, I would
Yep.
say. And
Yep.
when it comes to kind of making that switch, because I do think that for longer term growth and confidence and creativity and kind of actually like giving
Hmm.
some agency to your learning, I do think that the
Yep.
projects is the way to go. Even I remember the times when I would stop lecturing in social studies and so long story short, we had this like multicultural calendar project in my social
Oh,
studies
nice.
class, and it was like a week long project, and like the week just flew by. I
Hmm.
designed the project with my class, we designed the rubric for it, and then we carried it over. Like I'm getting chills thinking about it, but it was
Amazing.
like it
Yeah.
was so fun, and the kids like they still talk to me about it, and I'm like, but I don't have again like that'll
Mm.
come with time, and so when it comes to that applicability to math, so for example, like we were looking at um, like circumference and radius and like
Hmm.
those kind of things in grade 8 this year, and one of them was like an aquarium and a zoo project where you had like a certain amount of space and you had to fit all these in, and it was super fun, and like this might be too general of a question, but it's also kind of me looking into what are the what is your experience in designing these kind of more creative assessments and also like incorporating gamification? Like those are kind of like those seem to be the two places where we're trying to go. It's
Mhm.
almost like the parents want to like pull us back a bit and be like, no, like give them the quizzes so I know they got an 80
Yeah.
or a 90, but it's also we're like trying to pull them into a bit more gamified and creative. So I guess what are your
Yeah.
thoughts there?
Yeah, so I did a whole bunch of project-based learning training a few years ago, and I redesigned my university course according to the project-based learning structures and guidelines.
Okay.
Loved it. Um,
Okay.
and you know, university courses are often expected to be test, quiz, assignment, blah, blah,
Yeah.
blah. And I'm like, no, our project actually as teachers is designing a unit of study or designing a course. That's
Yeah.
the project. And we need to learn all these bits in the middle to help do that well. So I really like project-based learning. If you follow, it's High Tech High School in California, I think, does a really good project, like they're project-based
Uh-huh.
school. So everything is done that way. But it's not a project at the end to put the learning together. It's learning through the project. And I
Yeah.
think that distinction, so it's not the focus on the product at the end, it's the learning through. And so it's shifting. You introduce the project early, and
Uh-huh.
then as students need to know things, as
It's
things
kind
pop
of real
up,
life.
yeah,
You
you
learn
as the
through the
teacher that have
projects, yeah.
yeah, you have to, as a teacher, have to be ready to say, okay, now let's talk about this. So you have to be more nimble in your instruction and what
Hmm.
you're seeing the students need. And that causes some people some anxiety because
Yeah.
you have, as a teacher, have to have all that knowledge just ready.
Yeah.
And then one of the things with those projects as well is they say there has to be some external accountability, which is really interesting. Whenever you finish the project, you have to present it to the grade below, the grade above, to parents, to whatever, so
Oh,
that there's
I
meaning
like
for
that.
it.
Yeah.
And so my son's math class, I think it was grade 6 or grade 5, they did a project where they were designing unfair carnival games. So games where the probability was
I love
unfair,
that.
right? It was really
Yeah.
good. Like I loved it. And so then they had a carnival day where kids from other classes came in and tried the games and then had to, experience what an unfair game, like designed to be unfair,
Hmm.
felt like, looked like, and then talk about it afterwards. So the accountability to have that game ready for Carnival Day, huge.
Yeah.
Because otherwise, kids are going to come to your booth and you're not ready for them. So,
Yes.
right. But they're learning the mathematics about fair, unfair, theoretical probability versus experimental probability, what
Hmm.
that all looks like. It was great. And so they
And
don't always have to be big either, right? They can be
yeah.
small.
Well, 'cause I'm even wondering too, like if there's a fair coming to town, you could like time that before and be like, when you go, like, are these actually fair games or are you going to
Yeah.
lose more, etc. But I think interesting. I like that a lot. I think, and I think that kind of goes into like especially teaching social studies. Like I had to teach the position
Mm,
paper, the source analysis, but pretty much every other project was presenting, and the stakes are lower when you're kind of presenting to your own class,
yeah.
and when I can't really, I mean when the mark is only based on the product that I receive, like it's
Yeah.
hard to distinguish the mark for group members and all that stuff. So it's a very
Hmm.
different, I think. But I love what you're saying about trying to, like we can talk about AI and how we're all terrified
Oh
of it,
yeah.
but I think
Yeah.
that ability
Yeah.
to design, create, and present, I think is always going to be an effective skill to hone.
Hmm.
Um, and so that kind of goes to, and I love that idea of like that's kind of where you're going with the creative part is kind of the again they're creating their own thing and presenting and are you involved at all in the world of like gamification and like because to
Mm,
me like we have knowledge hook and prodigy and there
yeah.
was another I'm forgetting it now it was like a meteor shower game of like the meteor gets faster and faster if you don't get the multiplication question done but when you go into a conversation about gamification and including it like
Hmm.
what is your, I guess, philosophy of is it more is better? If it's effective, is it depending on the students? I guess what do you think there?
Yeah. I really think it depends on the student. My So it depends on how you're using gamification. Because I know many students rise to the challenge of
Yeah.
winning and
Hmm.
competition, and other students you immediately lose because they don't care. They don't care
Yeah.
about winning. They don't care about competition. So it's really, what are you trying to achieve, and who are you leveraging, or who are you prioritizing in that aspect? Because I know as soon as that meteor that you were describing, I'm out. I don't care.
Yeah.
I don't. Yeah, I don't want that pressure.
Take your eight
Like,
times eight and leave, Mr.
yeah,
Clark. Like,
and gotta go. Yeah.
yeah.
So you really have to think about why you're doing it and who you're doing it for, and what is the end goal. And can you have then some gamification and some not? So you're not always, um, you know, leveraging those students that it works for. So I find that often with in some classrooms, they'll be like, "Oh yeah, they always love it when it's a race." Or I'm like, "Who always loves it? The kids that are loud and win all the time, or the
Yeah.
and which kids in the back are like, it's not again." Um, so switch it up is what I'm
Hmm.
saying. So a variety of
Yeah.
strategies, support all of the students in your
Hmm.
classroom at different times. So, ungrading is also something that is coming out. So it's alongside gamification, but also ungrading. So students doing more reflection on their learning.
Hmm.
So it's not grading, which so you're still grading, because we do have to,
Yeah.
even at post-secondary, we have to offer a grade at the end. But
Yeah.
it's more about the thinking about the learning than it is the performance according to the outcomes. And I
Hmm.
think we really have to, again, be careful. What then are we reporting? So, mandated by the province in Alberta, we have to report on the outcomes.
Yeah.
So, what are we doing here, and why are we doing it this way? And, is it actually meeting our mandate? At university, there isn't necessarily that sort of
Was that like stressful
requirement.
for you?
Oh,
Because it
yeah,
almost
totally.
feels like you have the comfort of like, okay, I know I have these outcomes. Like this is my year. Like I gotta do
Yeah.
these like 30 things, and that's what I'm doing. And then it's like, even Brent Sakuchi, I think he
Oh,
teaches
yeah.
at the university. So I had
Yeah.
him on recently. His episode's coming out in the fall as
Nice.
well. Great guy, and we're just chatting, and like the way he talks about, oh yeah, like I do my syllabus, but we're very like moving from day to day, like you don't really know how the day's gonna go. Like that's so stressful to me, like
Oh, my
not
gosh.
having that kind of rigidity. And I think that's something that anyone will just become more comfortable with as they go. Um,
Yeah.
but yeah, I don't know. I don't know if you have anything else to add to like the way like do you kind of just do less overall assessment? And like I almost found that for
Mm.
myself, teaching social studies especially, tangents were always welcome, obviously as long as they're relevant. I might tell the occasional story that's not relevant, but that's okay.
But
But like
that's
in
what
my
teaching is about.
yeah, like I'd be like, okay, like my plan for today is I want to get through like slides 2 through 9, and I have my exit slip, and we're kind of just thinking about things. But then we're 80 minutes in and I'm on slide 3 because like we've had questions and then these things come up and I think of that story that happened that might be relevant,
Mhm.
and we're always kind of going into the content. But is that because to me my like first like month teaching it'd be like no, like my minute plan has to be followed
Mm.
versus later on it's like okay, whatever we don't get to today we'll get to tomorrow. Is that just
Yeah.
more of what it becomes, or how much I guess are you planning the unplanned in your actual
Oh,
university coursework?
yeah. So my first couple of years were like, I have no idea. Like, I have no idea, right? I'm a
Yeah.
first year
No, no
teacher again. I was like,
idea.
what am I doing?
Yeah.
I'm teaching 3-hour classes
Yeah.
with like adult students
Yeah.
who, I'm just trying to get them to see alternatives to what they know as students, right?
Hmm.
Particularly in assessment. I want to try and push them out of their comfort zone of
Yeah.
quiz test, assignment, homework, etc.
Hmm.
To open up a different world for them. And there is a lot of pushback, which is amazing because that's where those rich
Yep.
conversations happen. And I now have become purposefully antagonistic in some ways to say, I really want you to think about this. So,
Hmm.
for example, I don't like bonus marks. I think bonus marks are like crap.
Hmm. Yeah.
And So then inevitably somebody says, "Oh, and we're going to have bonus marks on." I'm like, and then I rant, right?
So what's your rant?
But I
Tell me more.
save it, like I save it for that moment, right? Because I know it's
Yes.
coming. But but then I also need to go back because I'm teaching future teachers. I go back and say, okay, what did I do today? What decisions did I make in my planning? This is what my lesson plan looked like, and this is where we ended up. So I always have, like, I feel like I need to go back and meta talk through all of the decisions that I made as a teacher in that moment, or through that class, because they don't see that and they don't know that. And it looks like I followed my script perfectly, but I didn't.
Yeah.
Um, so just trying to get them to see then even next class. So what happened this class is going to inform what I do next class. So I don't plan a whole year in advance because that's a waste of time.
Yeah,
Right.
the
And
year
so
plans
thinking
are
about
always
how
weird
you're,
to me too. It's like I don't know what I'm gonna do like next week. Like obviously you have a rough indication of like a
yeah,
curriculum map or whatever, but you're not like, no,
yeah,
I don't have every lesson planned. Like that's kind of it makes it not
yeah.
fun. I don't know. It makes it unrealistic.
I have
It's
a
not believable.
sketch.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah, like I have a sketch, but I'm going to fill in the pieces as I go. And at the end, I'll have a picture. But the
yeah.
pieces are in different years are going to get filled out in different ways, just because of the students and all that. So, yeah, so really just trying to think until I became super comfortable with what it was I was teaching, I didn't feel like I could stray too much. But
Yeah.
once I'm comfortable and have the experience, and that's always the double-edged sword, right? Like
Yeah.
you need to have the experience to be comfortable doing this, but I don't have the experience yet. So how do I become comfortable? A lot of trial and error. Yeah.
And so how long so I know even at the beginning of this conversation, I usually try to exchange some generalities, but I kind of went right into
Oh
my
yeah.
math question there. Like I made it about me. I'm sorry, but
That's okay.
like, how long have you kind of been in higher education? Like, why the decision to
Yeah.
kind of move up? Was it like a? I loved the idea. So, for example, teacher shortage in New Brunswick, almost everywhere,
Yeah.
and
Everywhere.
they're talking about like cutting people in district positions to kind of put them back in the
Yeah.
classrooms, but one of the people at my school said like, you know what, I understand that numbers piece of okay, you slash 10 to put 10
Hmm.
more in, but at some point like people have like graduated beyond the classroom. Okay, like they've taught
Yeah.
their 15, 20 years and now they can make impact at a greater level. Is that kind of where you felt like, you know what, I kind of want to just try to, we haven't talked about anything with teacher retention or like teacher onboarding or service
Yeah.
teacher or pre-service teachers, but so is that kind, would you say that's kind of your experience of just like seeking a new challenge or just moving on in some way?
No. So my journey's been a little bit haphazard.
Okay.
And so
Those are always fun.
yeah, I know, right? So I started teaching, well, I feel like I was super young now that I look back at it. But I taught at a country school, like in the middle of nowhere, K to
Yep.
12, 150 kids,
Yep.
taught everything. So my first experience as a teacher was teaching like everything. So
Oh,
that was
okay.
fun.
That's sounds horrible.
And yeah, no, I like taught kindergarten music and taught calculus and taught
Oh,
like all of the
oh, like
outdoor
grades
ed,
too. Okay, wow.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Oh, yeah, everything. I was all over the place. Moved to Edmonton and taught there. So got into mostly mathematics. I taught at an outreach school where students are in and out of jail or they're in and out of schools or they're, like it's, so I taught all of high school in that context.
Mhm.
And then at somewhere in there, I kind of want to do my master's. So let's do my
Yeah.
master's. That's kind of fun. At the time, the curriculum was changing in Alberta, and I was using the distance learning resources, and I didn't like how they were structured. So I
Yep.
thought, let's create a new resource. That's what I did my master's. So I created a Math 10 resource for students that were doing distance learning or that sort of thing. Then moving on, career going like crazy. I worked at Alberta Ed for 2 years, designing diploma exams. So
Oh,
I was seconded there. Loved it. Had so much
yeah.
fun. Really, really enjoyed the experience. But the time that I was there, the ministry decided to remove the written response from the math and the science diploma exams.
Mm.
I thought that was wrong. And so I said, I'm going to do my PhD and I'm going to prove you wrong. Who does that, right? Like who
Yeah.
says, now I'm going to go do further education to show you.
Yeah.
So anyway, so I went and started my PhD, never intending to be at post-secondary. I was fully intended on going back to the classroom and teaching mathematics. While I was doing my PhD, this job at the University of Lethbridge came up, and it was perfect. It was an assessment. I graduated from the U of L. It would be coming back home, all sorts of things. I did not even think I was close to getting it. So after 17 years of being in the classroom, I've now been 15 years at post-secondary.
Wow.
And it was a huge shift because I'm used to bells ringing and this is when you might be able to eat your
Yeah.
lunch. And now you're like, I'm here. What do I do?
Yeah.
Like so unstructured. And I was like, I don't know
Yeah.
if I'm doing this right. Um,
Do you
but
like it more though?
so
Like,
the
is it a better kind
um
of now that you're in it?
it's
Like,
it's very academia is very challenging. It's
yeah.
very challenging.
Mhm.
Um, there's a lot of nebulous stuff like you need to
Okay.
research. They don't tell you what to
Yeah.
research, how to research, right? You get to make decisions, which is great. But after being in a very prescribed situation for so long, that freedom is like, I don't know what to do.
Yeah.
But I I love teachers. Like teachers are my population
Yeah.
of my group. And so I do a lot of work with teachers throughout the province. I hadn't gone to Fort McMurray yet, but I've been up to, oops, but
Yeah.
I've been up to Grand Prairie a lot. I do
Mhm.
lots of work with teachers around the province. So they're my people.
Yeah.
And so I try and stay connected to schools and that
Mhm.
way. Um, and so I love the university for that opportunity
Mhm.
to get to work with so many different people and support their work and their practice so that they can then support their students. So I didn't know what I was doing getting into post secondary, not a clue.
Yeah.
But now I'm really happy that I made the change. It wasn't
Yeah.
intentional. So yeah.
Well, no, I think that's probably even better that like you didn't, I guess, necessarily. It always seems to be the case that people that don't necessarily pursue their path are always like better off in them whenever it ends up. I don't know why that seems to be the case, but
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, well, I'm having a great time. So I hope my
Yeah.
students are. I love it when I'll go to a teachers convention, let's say in Red Deer, and I'll have former
Mhm.
students come up and like, "Hi, Richelle, it's so good to see you." I'm like, "Thank you for not running away.
Yeah.
You were the worst."
Oh, yeah, I think that would be cool. Honestly, I think it'd be cool in the future for myself, like 10, 15 years from now, to kind of be involved in some teacher education. Obviously, I think that's where the heart of this podcast tries to,
Mm,
I guess, go after.
yeah.
And so to kind of end us off here a little bit, because
Hmm.
I, one of the things I've noticed, especially with I almost feel like I haven't seen as much written about it lately of like the teacher shortage stuff. I don't know if things are starting
Oh
to
yeah.
kind of rebound the other way, if things are improving. I don't know. Like, has that kind
Mm.
of been your, I guess, informal assessment as well? Or
Yeah, no,
it's
no.
purely
In
speculating. I'm
Alberta,
just kind of, yeah.
yeah, yeah. In Alberta right now, the ministry has announced like 29 new schools or something like that.
Yeah.
And the worry is who's going to teach in those schools?
Yeah.
Because we don't have the people for the current schools, never mind all these
Yeah.
new schools.
Yeah.
So that's the biggest concern. And there is a conversation about fast tracking education or like not necessarily bachelor's, but teaching certificates for those that have PhDs or those that have advanced
Yeah.
long time careers, et cetera. So I don't really know. Yeah, I don't really know. There is still a shortage,
Hmm.
but I don't know how to fix it because we
Yeah.
do need more
It's
teachers.
so,
Yeah.
and that was because I did reach out to, I had Jason Schilling on in the past,
Oh, yeah.
and I reached out to him recently. I don't, this might never become a thing, but it was almost kind of my idea where if what would you do if you had to mediate a conversation between Jason
Yeah.
Schilling and the education minister? I always get his first and last name mixed up. Is it Demetrios Nicolaides? Yes. I think his first name is
Yes. Yeah.
Demetrios. Him and I
Demetrios.
actually had the
Yes.
same professor in Calgary that we had a kind of a bit of a connection there. But anyway, and I said to
Nice.
Jason, I messaged Jason and I said, like, would you be interested? Like, where I'm kind of no longer an Alberta teacher, if I came from New Brunswick to
Right.
kind of do that
Yeah.
conversation at GECA, I think that could be an interesting, like, try to be unbiased, I
That'd be
guess. But,
amazing.
well, like,
Yeah.
how, like, what would you, because obviously to me, your kind of ABCs of education issues like
Mm.
diploma exams, standardization, retention, all that, and like honestly just investment. Like
Yeah.
what would you want to hear in a conversation like that? Like because I feel like a teacher said to me once,
Yeah.
we already have all the answers, we're just not being listened to. So like,
Right.
what do you do with that? Right.
Yeah. And, I've heard that a lot lately from the Alberta Teachers Association too, saying, we know what needs to
Like
be
we're
done. There
telling you.
doesn't need to be another, yeah, there doesn't need to be another task force
Yeah.
to decide something, which
It's
they're
very
really
official
good at
though.
doing. Yeah. Um,
The war room.
so yeah, that's right. The war room on education. Terrifying. Jason Schilling and I did our undergrads together. So I've known
Oh,
Jason for a
okay.
very long time.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I had an opportunity to sit down with the education minister. I can't remember if it was last year, as part of an Alberta enterprise group thing.
Okay. Yeah.
And so at that point, it was a there's a very antagonistic relationship between
Yeah.
the ministry and the Alberta Teachers Association right now. And the ministry, the minister will say right now, isn't quite understanding why the Alberta Teachers Association is resisting certain things. For example, the early years assessments that are happening in K to 3, all of the literacy and numeracy assessments that the teachers are having to do are not value added from the teacher's perspective. So I did a study for the ATA where I surveyed teachers across the province and interviewed teachers across the province about the early years assessments. And they're not seeing the value add to their practice.
Yeah.
The minister in this meeting said, why wouldn't teachers want more information about their students? So they're not paying attention to what actual information the teachers are getting. So
Okay.
the teachers are not getting actionable
Yeah.
information to help their students grow.
Mhm.
They're getting a statement that says, these 3 students are at risk. The rest of these are not at risk. Period. That's what they're getting.
Yeah.
And so the ministry isn't necessarily listening to the people in the classroom where these decisions are being impacted. They're listening to certain researchers. Great. They're listening to
Yeah.
research, but blocking out other information that they're getting and filtering it through like, well, why wouldn't you?
Yeah.
And that kind of perspective isn't
Well, I
helpful.
guess in
So what
that
I'd
sense,
really,
you could just keep going. Like you can be like, oh, let's do 50, and like you're getting more information. So
yeah,
yeah, the quantity over the
yeah,
quality. Yeah.
yeah. So what I'd really like to see is them almost have a conversation without their hats on. And that makes sense.
Yeah.
So Demetrius Nicolaides as a dad, as a parent in Alberta, Jason Schilling as an English teacher in Alberta. Let's talk about what this looks like, instead of representing their, their roles. I would
Honestly,
like to see that.
I'm gonna edit this out, but my thought for like a first question to ask them, what was gonna be like if it was very serious and like everyone's watching, I'd be like,
Yeah.
are you ticklish? That was gonna be like my first
Oh
thing to
yeah.
be like, just to break the ice, be
Yeah.
like, whoa, like yeah, my feet, like just something that's like humanizing, I guess, in a sense, to be like, okay, so we're
Exactly.
both like we're all people here, we're all trying to have the same goal, but I don't know, maybe I'll cut that one out, maybe we'll figure it out. I'll do something,
Maybe.
but so yeah, I'm
Yeah.
gonna see if I can get that for next year. But anyway, yeah, and
But
I
but
totally
so
yeah.
here's the
Go
thing.
ahead, yeah,
Yeah. So Minister Nicolaides has children, at
yeah,
least one, I believe.
yeah.
So he knows his children's experiences through school.
Mhm.
Teachers know 300 or more children's experiences through school because they
Yeah.
teach large groups of kids.
Mhm.
So they have a broader perspective of the spread of different things or the complexity of different things than a parent within 1 or 2 or 3 or even 10 children,
Yeah.
because the teacher knows the breadth
Mhm.
of the experience. So I think it's really important to open up those lines of communication in a real and honest way without the politicizing of the conversation.
Yes, and I think that would obviously be my goal if I did have the opportunity to do that eventually, but we'll see. So
Yeah.
actually, there's one more thing I wanted to ask you about the teacher
Sure.
time machine. I saw that
Oh,
you were a co-founder
yay.
of. So I guess in the wake of AI, clearly you're seeing this as like
Hmm.
a good, like you're part of an organization that's trying to help teachers with this kind of honestly, like the differentiation issue, I would say, is what it primarily solves. Like,
Mhm.
give me this text, but give me in grade 5 and 4 level as well as grade 8. So I guess tell me a bit more about like how you get involved, what you're trying to do, and like how it's effective.
Yeah, so thank you for the question, Lucas. Teacher Time Machine has been an amazing journey. So,
Mhm.
myself and Sharon Skredding and Dan Vanden Duggan. Sharon's a retired teacher and former principal and coach. Me, we've talked about who I am, and Dan Vanden Duggan is a current principal at an elementary school here in Southern Alberta. And what we're trying to do is we're trying to elevate the work of teachers through the use of AI. So, what we're trying to do is we're trying to support teachers in making solid decisions about their classroom and being able to differentiate, like you said, without having to, or with, I guess, additional support from the AI. So, when you're talking about projects, why not let AI design a project for you? And if you have 6 students that are interested in Minecraft, design a project that meets your curricular outcomes to Minecraft. Give it to them. And then if these students over here are interested in something else, make them another project still on those curricular outcomes, but with a different focus. As
Mhm.
a teacher, I would want to do that, but I wouldn't always have the time, the energy to
Yeah.
craft all of those projects, right?
Mhm.
And rubrics and etc. So with AI, we can leverage its ability to draw on the world of knowledge and craft those things for us, and then differentiate for our students and do some more personalization for our students. And so, what we're trying to do is make sure that the focus always is on curriculum first. What curriculum are you using? What outcomes are you trying to achieve in your class? We take in a lesson plan, for example, we ask teachers, the curricular outcome, what kind of assessment do you want to achieve in this class? What differentiation needs do your students have? Any additional information so that it tailors that lesson plan to you and your students' needs. So it's not a generic, give me the kind of topic and go, here's your lesson plan. But we're really building on the knowledge of teachers to develop or to guide the AI to develop something that's useful for them in their context.
Beautiful. Yeah, and honestly, I think it almost become like a weird cultural thing where teachers don't admit that they're using AI. It's like, oh no, I don't.
Yeah,
I'm old fashioned. I do it the old way. I'm like, why? Like, it's not weird.
yeah.
Like, this is a tool. Why not use it? Like, I don't know. To me, it's. Um, I love seeing more of it. I love seeing the different
Mm.
organizations out there and things coming up because like, why not have another valuable resource at your disposal? But beautiful.
Well,
So
and if
yeah,
we're
go ahead.
if we've got a teacher shortage and we've got stressed teachers and et
Yeah.
cetera, let's help them
Yep.
and give them tools that can make
Whoa.
their work a little bit less
Whoa.
stressful.
That's
Right?
that makes way too much sense. Way too much sense over here. So to end off here
All
today,
right.
Dr. Marynowski, I have 2 quotes that I always finish off the show with. The first one is obviously I see your some obvious people like are talking about how great you are and that I've worked with you and I've learned from you and recommended you to kind of be a
Awesome.
guest on the podcast. So the quote is, "Do not let school get in the way of your education." So I see you as someone who's
Mm.
obviously successful in your domain, have great working relationships. So I guess what are the things that you have learned to kind of help you become successful that you would not necessarily have learned in a classroom?
Um, hmm. Uh, Own the mistakes. Um, Make a mistake, own it, fix it.
Hmm.
Don't
Yeah.
just let it sit there.
Okay.
My first year teaching, I made a huge mistake in a unit exam or a final exam. I was called to the principal's office,
Hmm.
and, and I owned it and I fixed
Still
it.
stressful. Yeah.
Right? Like, no, no, don't do that to a first year teacher. Call
Yeah.
them to the principal's office and shut the door.
Yeah.
Um, but own the mistake, fix the mistake, let it go, do better next time.
Yeah. Let it go. I like that. And
Let it go.
then,
Yeah.
so the last one, somewhat on a similar token, is
Okay.
education is what remains once one forgets everything that they learned in school. So the follow up is, what is it that you want people to take away from their time with you specifically that they won't get anywhere else?
Ooh, that they won't get anywhere else. That's a tough one.
Hmm. It's always the
Hopefully
deep ones
it
to finish
is.
off.
Yeah, yeah, great. Hopefully it's a sense of worth in themselves
Okay.
as teachers, and something that they can take and then put back into their class to support their work. So really knowing that they are where they need to be and that they are doing good work. I hope that's what they take away from their time with me.
Beautiful. Dr. Richelle Marynowski, thank you so much for coming on today.
Thanks, Lucas.